All right, guys, we got to talk about a very important topic if you ever want to decide to become a landlord. It is about screening your tenants. Now, this is not going to be a technical video about how to call up their job or their previous landlord, getting recommendations like that, or how to run their credit. No, this is about more of like a mindset, right? What's got to be going through your mind before you choose a tenant. And this will make such a huge difference between either enjoying your rentals and just waiting for your money to come in and enjoying your life, maybe traveling, and then just knowing 100% that you're going to get paid, or B, you're so frustrated that you're losing money and you just don't want to deal with it anymore, and you even at a loss, you want to sell your rental units. So here it is. The most important screening criteria is you have to treat this tenant like you are going into a long-term business. This person is going to become your business partner. And if you do not feel secure that this person, or you wouldn't be a business partner with this tenant, you see some red flags or whatever, then it's 100% true, and you should not get into this type of relationship. Why do I say that? I mean, there's a lot of like all sorts of groups, maybe the state of California, there's a lot of propaganda out there that would try to make it seem that it's very like a quick transaction thing. They try to make it seem that renting somebody like a unit, they would block from you doing a history check or this, that, and the other. Because first of all, they don't care. They don't have any skin in the game. Those type of people are advocates, right? But secondly, this is not a store, because a store, if you have the money, you can buy the item. You don't have the money, well, they don't have to sell you the item. The store can close any day and they can go out of business, or they can relocate their store. They can choose not to have a certain type of inventory. They can raise price if they're losing money or whatever. They can raise price on items like the next day or the same day. This is not this type of a trend, like a quick transaction. You're in it with this person, really in it. Like, also, like, how should I describe this? Well, what is a business partnership? Let's say you open up a store and you put in the money, and the other person has to run it. They have hundreds of thousands worth of inventory. There's a lot of money at stake. Well, that's your apartment building. That's your multifamily house. Now, even though it might not seem that way, because, hey, you might have used 3% down payment, FHA, 3% down payment. So you can take over, you can purchase like $500,000 property for $16,000 or whatever. Well, just because your down payment was artificially low doesn't mean that you're not on the hook for a ton of money. This asset doesn't matter where you are in the country or how cheap the houses are, it is still a ton of money. A single unit, like, what can a tenant do? I mean, how much damage can they cause from just the destructive power of somebody breaking windows, or just if they get mad at you, or just they're like mentally unstable? How much, just even carelessly using the bathtub, they can flood your unit, and flood the unit downstairs, causes thousands and thousands, maybe tens of thousands worth of damage. Them being messy and a hoarder can cause rats and roaches and your other tenants to move out. Them being a professional tenant, a professional deadbeat, where they know all the laws, they stop paying they start paying rent and get like a free advocate, and be in your rental unit for months and months and months while you spend thousands of dollars on lawyers and just pulling your hair out, because at the end of the day, you are still responsible to hold up your side of the transaction, even if they don't hold up theirs. They might not be paying rent, but you're responsible for property taxes, insurance, repairs, utilities if there's shared utilities. You can't just, if the person stops paying rent, you can't just like, oh, I'm not going to pay utilities anymore, and get their electricity or water cut off. Then you're going to be in trouble, right? So it's almost like you are giving, like, every single unit out there in the United States it's probably worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. So basically you are giving somebody keys to a Ferrari or a Lamborghini, right? And you're kind of hoping this person is smart enough and emotionally stable enough to pay your rent, but then also use the property in a decent way so they're not breaking stuff, right? Because things are fragile, and if you're not careful, things easily can fall apart, or especially if the person is loud and they can get the other tenants that you might have move out, and then you're having all these problems. And the one quick tip is that even if you have a property in a bad neighborhood or something like that, do not just try to like get it filled, because a bad non-paying tenant that you have to evict and spend money on, it's way worse. It's much more better and advantageous to having just a vacant unit than having a non-paying tenant that you have to evict and go through a bunch of trouble, and then they're going to be pissed off, and on the way out they're going to be breaking stuff. So that's the main thing. You have to treat them as a long-term. You have to treat this as a long-term business partnership. There's no other way around it. Now, of course, this is not the only way to do it. There are landlords that specialize in dealing with tenants, for example, in bad neighborhoods. Everybody in their building, their rent is cheap. Everybody in the building has really bad credit or this and that, but they have their own system to screen tenants, and they're very direct, as in if a tenant is like 1 day late or whatever, they have a system where an eviction notice goes automatically on their door. They have a system. I recommend. It's possible to do that, but leave that to the pros. Leave that after you got maybe half a decade of experience, and maybe you get mentorship as far as if you want to have those type of tenants. But for everybody else starting out, I would highly recommend that you deal with tenants that have something to lose, that they have their credit on the line. Even if you don't ever go to court or ever try to put any kind of bad blemish on their credit, just so somebody knows that they gave you a social security number, they know that their credit is on the line. That's gonna, and you have you gave them their unit, so both of you guys have something to lose. So both parties have a mutual interest in like resolving any kind of disputes without going, nuclear, as I would say. So here's another little bit of psychology for you guys. Before you buy, if you make the first mistake, then you could have a cascading trickle down of other problems and mistakes. Well, what do I mean by that? Before you need to buy an apartment building with your ideal tenant in mind, right? You can't just buy like a cheapo apartment building in the hood and expect a certain type of tenant with like a great credit and a good job and stuff like that. That's not going to work, right? If you want to deal with a certain type of tenant, you have to buy in the neighborhood that those tenants want to live. Now, also, you cannot overpay for a building, because the problem is if you overpay for a building and your mortgage and insurance, everything's very high, and you plan on charging maximum market rent or even above market rent, well, the problem there is you're going to get more of a desperate type of clientele, or people that are going to be contacting and applying. There's going to be, nobody wants to overpay, and everybody looking at Zillow or apartments.com, they know what the typical market asking price is for an area. So if you have yours hundreds of dollars above that, some people are willing to do that because they can't get any other apartment, or that's in that area or whatever. So you'll be dealing with people with bad credit that don't qualify. Because just get from a tenant perspective, if you have a good credit and you have a good job, the world is your oyster. Anywhere you want to live, you can get that unit. So those people know that. They apply, landlord gets back to them right away. They know they're serious, shows them the place. So that creates understanding that they know they're a good tenant, and they want a good deal. unless your property like has some really special amenities, like maybe walk-in showers or just like garages or just like really nice stuff that people like, or whatever. I know this is like above market rate, but I'm gonna pay that. If you're a typical apartment, people want maybe like a $100 or $200 discount. It's a little less than the market. Therefore, you got to get like flooded with applications, and you can choose the cream of the crop tenants. As far as credit versus income, I would like to have the tenant to be like 2.5, 3 times their earnings times the more than the rent. However, the more experience I have, the more that I learn that that might not be the most important thing. That's one thing you can kind of compromise. My main thing would be do a credit check. I use Zillow, although be careful because there's ways of faking that. So I was scammed one time on that. There might not be that person's identity, but anyway, you run the Zillow credit check. They apply, and you see. And my most important thing is the percentage of on-time payments. You want that at 100% or like 99. You want that very high. I've seen people applied for my units with like 50%, 35% on-time payments. It's just like, wow, if you can't pay your car payment or your student loans only like half the time, like what makes me think that I'm going to be a priority for them? Especially if they see me not as like some big company, but as a private landlord. Definitely going to be trying to see, how they can get, how lenient I am, and keep testing that. So they don't want to even play that game. You want, ideally 3 times, ideally income 3 times the rent, but maybe 2.5. Maybe there are some people that are very frugal and really kind of like know what they're doing. Their budget is tight, but if they have good credit, more than likely, I could compromise on that and just rent them that unit. Here's some things to look at, like just some red flags and ways to. Another thing is I self-manage. Try to avoid time wasters in how you can just quickly screen people without even running any kind of credit, without even talking to them. So what I do at the very top of my ad, because the problem is, if person just like, how Tinder used to be, where men would just like swipe on all women and then just wait to see what type of women match them and then read their profile. That's the type of thing. There's a bunch of tenants that they know their credit is shot. Something's really wrong, and then they just like clicking on every single apartment building, and then when you reply to them, just like, oh yeah, hi, it's available, yeah, sure, they start asking you very basic questions that you clearly already answered in the description. I want to avoid those. In my experience, those are time wasters. They never qualified anyway. So to save yourself a bunch of time, this is what I do. I would say at the first line, the very top paragraph, because I don't expect somebody to read completely everything. I mean, at the very top, just say, if you're seeing, that's what I could say, it's something along those lines. So like, if you're seeing this unit, it's available. Please message me. If you're interested, please message me the date you want to move in, your approximate income, approximate credit score, something like that. You will verify this stuff later. But just to validate that when the first message, because if the first message they sent you is they did not read that, they ask you, is this available? That means they did not read the very first line of the ad. That means 99.999 out of times, these people it's complete time wasters. So I only reply to a person that actually read the top line, and usually 95% of the time, the person that read the top line is a very qualified tenant. They would, hey, my name is Sally, I want to move in March 1st and blah, 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 okay, cool. Then this is a person I would take seriously and actually would actually even drive out and then show them the unit. Usually I'd love to set up an open houses where I'm not like going to back and forth all the time every day. I like to show everybody all at once, maybe like a Saturday or Sunday, just have an open house. I think that's cool because there's a lot of people, time wasters anyway. They'll come by, they don't like your unit or it's odd shaped or whatever. And if other tenants see that other people are looking at the spot, that might kind of light a fire underneath their belly and just trying to like, oh, I want it, I'll apply sooner, It gives that type of illusion of demand. But if the person has read the first couple paragraphs, that means, to me, I have my bar so low, but to me, that means they're serious. And I would just drive out there and just show them the unit individually. So that's one thing. Like I said before, sometimes I forget this, and it always drives me up a wall. I just always so pissed off at myself. You got to ask when do you want to move in? Because I don't know how many times, for what reason, or just so bizarre, I don't know what's going through people's head. I try to ask them, but could never get a satisfactory answer. There'll be people that see an apartment that's available now, and you can go through a bunch of rigmarole, setting up a time when I'm available and they're available, just like dozens and dozens of messages, only to find out later that, oh yeah, they like the unit, but they'll rent the unit if I can hold the unit for 6 or 7 months or something like that for them. For the privilege of then in a half a year to a year, I'll be paying their rent on their behalf, and for the privilege for them, maybe in half a year they might move in or something like that. That's, I could see that if your house or apartment is located on a college campus. Yeah, I can see that because there's a cycle of, the school cycle and the schedule and people moving in and out, and people want to know where they're going to stay the next year and planning ahead. That's A-okay. But the properties I have, nowhere near college, so it doesn't stop people from just randomly asking me if they can, or wasting my time, and later on me finding out that they're not planning on moving in for the next 6 months. So yeah, number one, I would ask, when do you want to move in? Like when, like on the first, hopefully, right? Because otherwise we're not okay, message me. If it's still available, message me then, that type of thing. So the red flags, what to avoid for. Number one is they need to move in right away. And that's always horrible. You don't want to do that. That just means that they're getting kicked out of somewhere they're living. Either staying on somebody's couch or their landlord's already evicting them or something along those lines. They need to move in right away, and then they're just, hey, how soon? It's like, when do you move in? Oh, when you need to move in ASAP. No, because the type of tenant I want is a responsible person with a stable job that thinks ahead, plans ahead, has good credit, just everything's good, and a responsible person. I mean, maybe, I'm sure there's probably certain exceptions, of course. I'm just talking about generalities, but a responsible person usually knows that they'll be needing, to rent a unit, and then they would be looking at least, 2-3 weeks ahead of time. They're going to be wanting to move in on the first. They got a good amount of time. They got, because they have good credit and a good job, they could qualify for almost any unit in the city. And hey, there's discerning renter, and they want to check yours out. So that's what I'm looking for. Move in right away. Huge red flag. I wouldn't do that. I know it can also be very tempting. Let's say if you spend a lot of money renovating or buying a place and you're really short on cash, or the unit's been vacant for a while, somebody would offer you to compromise. Without fail, somebody will message you and say, hey, my credit's really bad, blah, 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 but here I can pay 3 months cash ahead of time. I would be wary of that. That happens a lot more often than you think. Another red flag is if they're, actually here's two. So let's say if you ever, go down to your property, and you're just checking on your property, and then you're just taking out the trash, just cleaning up around there, see if how the landscaping guy's doing, make sure people don't leave a bunch of garbage, and just checking up on the property. Well, people will see you, and then they'll know that you're the landlord, right? And it happens a lot. So I'll be getting in my car, I'll be walking away from the building, and somebody will come by and say, "Hey, do you own this building?" You say, "Oh, yeah, I'm the landlord here." And they would say, "Oh, okay, cool, yeah, I love this area, blah, blah, blah. Oh, well, listen, is one of the units available? Can I rent it? This and that." And for the longest time, or just people on the street asking me, it happens all the time. And for a while, I was kind of a little curious about why are they doing that, and maybe entertaining it, like, well, I do have this unit available later, blah, blah. But then if you actually think about it, I kind of figured out why this is happening and why you should just ignore that anyway, because that's basically a huge red flag. There are two reasons why somebody would be doing that. Well, both are bad. Reason one is everybody has an iPhone these days, or a smartphone, and has access to Zillow. So there's two reasons for this, and both of them are bad. Everybody these days has access to Zillow, hot pads or whatever, and nobody these days anymore that like, oh wow, I'm just so technologically inept that they have to go and then like knock on apartment buildings or just like looking for rent signs. All right, so there's two reasons why people do that. Both of them are really bad. These days, everybody has a smartphone. Anybody can punch in this neighborhood on their phone and just see most places, most cities, see thousands of units available for rent. So most likely is what's happening is they are cheap. They don't want to pay the market price, and they're looking for an older landlord or a landlord that's not like really with it. And before they put their cheapo unit online, just like a house flipper, they want to put an offer or buy your house off market, so you want to rent your unit off market before you put, and every time I tell them my price, because my unit's actually at the top of the market, but I do a lot of renovations, I spend a lot of money, I put a lot of love in my units, but at the same time, I want a top tier tenant and I want a very nice unit. So they're always like shocked about like my price. So those people are a waste of time. Or two, the other reason is, which they don't really qualify. They're willing to pay the price, but their credit or whatever, people don't, they can't rent a unit, so they're trying to, through personal connection, this and that, they're trying to get a unit that way. Both of them are bad. Don't do that. Why would you shortchange yourself? And the last one is asking if you are a property management company or you self-manage, which is really funny because it's too inside baseball, right? Like, why would they care? Like if I go to Burger King, I don't want to ask the manager like, hey, is this a franchise store or is it owned locally, or like what does it matter to you? Like if I have the money to buy the hamburger, I'll buy the hamburger or whatever. It looks like that question pertains to that a professional property manager. You can't walk on them, and they will charge you late rent. They will run your credit. They do all the proper steps, and those type of people can't handle that or know that this is not good for them. So they're trying to get a sucker that they can kind of run their games on, as far as just being late all the time or skipping rent payments and this and that. So stay away. So yeah, I hope that that kind of this video kind of helps you out. This is basically a combination of 10 years of experience, as far as me starting in 2014. I now have 14 units, from renting rooms to renting 2 bedrooms in LA and Cincinnati. So yeah, that sums it up. But if you have any other red flags, just leave them down in the comment section. All right, later guys.